so here's an example of a problem in which we will need to use this log equation that helps us to find the value of n, or the number of half-lives. So in this problem, we are given an amount of time that we're waiting, 24 days. We're given an amount of material that is left from an original sample, and we are asked what is the half-life. So let's read the question. After 24.0 days, 2.00 milligrams of an original 128.0 milligram sample remain. What is the half-life of the sample? Okay, so this 24 days, let's go ahead and label what that is. What is it? It tells us after. That kind of implies that we are measuring that amount of time being how long we've waited until we measure. So that will be our little t, the amount of time that has passed. We're given 2.00 milligrams, and the question is that x0 or xf, because this is an amount of sample? Well, we can look at the two numbers and figure out which one's bigger, 128 milligrams or 2 milligrams. We can assume the bigger one is how much we started with, because half-life is talking about how much stuff is decaying. And the smaller one must be the final. So x final is this 2 milligrams, and x initial is this 128 milligrams. Okay? All right, and the question is, what is the half-life? All right, what letter is it that represents half-life? Is it N? Is it little t? Or is it big T? Well, we already know that little t is how much time has passed. And N is not exactly the half-life. It's the number of half-lives. When we're asked, what is the half-life? It's asking how much time is the half-life. So that is actually big T, half-life, and this is measured in time. Let's not forget that. All right, so we want to figure out big T. And so in order to figure out big T, we need to know n and little t. And in this question, we only know little t. We don't know n. So that is why we need this log equation that tells us n. All right, so we're going to use the equation in the box. And it looks like we can go ahead and plug in. We know xf and x0, and that's all we need to solve for n. So let's go ahead and plug that in. Log of xf, which we decided is 2.00 milligrams mg, minus log x0, I'm going to erase some of this junk over here. Log of x0 will give us 128.0 milligrams from what we were given in the question. And that's all over log of 0.5. And that whole thing is equal to n. So we have to solve it to find n. And what I'm going to tell you is pretty important. When you're putting this in your calculator, you're going to want to do each log separately and then simplify your expression, because it's going to be too complicated to make sure your parentheses are in the right place. So let's start with the first one. Log of 2.00. This gives me 0.30103. I'm just going to round it there because this number just keeps going. It's not worth writing every single decimal place. Okay, the next one. Log of 128 is 2.1072. 1. Okay. All right. Then I'm going to move to the next line. Log of 0.5 is negative 0.30103. All right. So when we subtract on the top, we're going to get 0.30103 minus 2.10721. And that gives us negative 1.80618 over negative 0.30103. Now, when you divide negative by a negative, you're going to end up with a positive. So I'll take this number and I'll divide it. And this is going to give me n equals 6. Alright, now I haven't answered my question yet because I've figured out the number of half-lives, but the question is asking us how much time is a half-life. Alright, so I'm going to erase some of this stuff up here. The equation that we need to figure out how much time is in a half-life using our number of half-lives is that n equals little t over big T, just like we said before. And before, we only knew little t from the question, so we figured out what n is, so we can plug in n and little t. So let's do that. Our n is 6, and our little t is 24.0 days. We want to know big T, how long is the half-life? So, we need to rearrange. If our variable is in the denominator, the first thing we need to do is get it out of the denominator. So right now it's being divided by t. The opposite of that is multiplying by t on both sides. So we get 6t equals 24, so this cancels, 24.0 days. And then if we want t by itself, we can divide on both sides by 6, because right now they're being multiplied. And that'll give us t equals, we take 24 divided by 6, which should give you 4. T equals 4.00 days. Alright, I put 2 decimal places of zeros so that it would have 3 significant figures, just like this time over here has 3 significant figures. Okay? And the unit is the same. So my unit is days, because my amount of time I waited was in days. Alright, so this is the half-life. Next. Actually, there are no more problems. There you go, we're done. So if you do not know n, this is the equation that you need to use, but you need to decide if you have enough information to know n or not. And in this question, since it was asking us what is the half-life, we did not know n. Sometimes it might tell you the number of half-lives that have gone by, so you would be able to skip this step. So you really have to start out with labeling your variables and figuring out what your unknown is to be able to solve these problems. As you're working on your web assignment or anything like that, if you come across questions, hopefully we can get to it. But if you need to ask a question, make sure you bring it to me in person. And hopefully this makes sense.